Good morning. Hope you're having an awesome start to this glorious summer morning. We have awesome starts every day. In Shul, 7 a.m. we have minyan, get some coffee, cake, a dose of Torah. It's a beautiful way to start your day. They say this old story about this guy who really wanted to join the Jewish country club. You know, you had the country club in Brookline that a week ago had the U.S. Open that didn't allow Jews. And this was a club only for Jews, the joke goes. And this guy says, please, I want to go. His name is O'Brien, he's a Catholic, and his Jewish friend says, listen, it's only for Jews. But he's nudging him, finally he says, you know what? I'll make a deal with you, you can come. But if anyone asks you what your name is, you say Goldberg. And if anyone asks you what you do for a living, you know, because Jews on the golf course, they're making deals, tell them you do manufacturing. And if they ask you what you manufacture, tell them you manufacture tzitzit, taluses. So the guy comes, gets all dressed nicely, comes to this thing, and lo and behold, in the 18th hole, someone asks him, hey, what's your name? He says, Goldberg. He says, oh, what do you do? He says, oh, manufacturing. And what kind of manufacturing? He says, I do talus. He says, oh, you know, I always wanted to know what it says on the head of the talus in those Hebrew letters. Maybe you could tell me? And the guy flustered, looks at him and says, oh, I would have no idea. I only make the sleeves. This week Torah portion, the book ends of the Torah portion. At the beginning part, speak about the spies. The spies that Moses sent to scour the land of Israel to see what's the best way for the Jewish people to conquer the land that God gave them. And at the end of the book end, we read about the mitzvah of tzitzit, the strings that we wear on the four corners of our garment that we wear under our shirt. And many a time and not, when I'm walking in the street or in the store, people come over to me in a nice way and they say, tell me, Rabbi, what are the strings about? And I tell them, it's about to eat them also, to see the tzitzit and to remember God and the 613 commandments. And they're always very fascinated by it. But the rabbis ask a question, what's the connection? There's always a connection between things that happen. Why are these the two bookend stories of the parsha? And the rabbi said like this, you see, when it came to the spies, God asked them to go to the land of Israel and to see the best way to conquer it. The spies came and they saw giants, they saw mighty fortresses and cities that were so fortified it was impossible to get into it. And they flustered. They got scared. They said, how are we ever going to enter this? And they gave up. They said, we can't conquer the land. The problem is that as we learn by the mitzvah of tzitzit, what does the verse say at the end of tzitzit? Uritem also. You will see the tzitzit. Uzechartem et kol mitzvot Hashem. You will remember all the mitzvot, all the commandments of God. The Torah is telling us something very important. When you see something, it's external. You see at the surface, you see with your eyes, it's something that with that external. But when you remember, it's something very deep, something very internal. The problem with the spies was that they saw the mighty people, they saw the giants, they saw the fortified cities. But they forgot to remember what God did for the Jewish people. If they would have thought, God, the 10 plagues that he did, the splitting of the sea, the revelation at Sinai, the war with Amalek, the manna, the well of Miriam, then the moment it wouldn't just be Re'isim, they wouldn't just see externally, but Uzechartem, they would see internally. Then they would have realized that they could conquer the land and they have nothing to worry about. And that's why it's the book ends, because the beginning of the portion is the mistake the spies make. At the end of the portion is God telling us what the mistake was and how we could deal with it. You see, we live in a crazy world. When what you see on the surface, the antagonism, the hate, the anti-Semitism towards Israel, in the most irrational ways. Just 2 weeks ago, we had the shocking story of the mapping project, which is an anonymous group that mapped out the addresses of all the Jewish organizations and their board members, CJP, JCRC, ADL, even J Street, and the members of their board. And they mapped out schools and shuls. And basically the map was, these are the people that we have to get rid of. We have to eradicate. That these people are colonialization, and they're the worst people for our society. The most shocking thing, literally, taking us back to the 1930s. And the outcry from the Jewish community was strong. But the outcry from our leaders, although there, was not strong enough. Maybe we have to also translate these words, when you see something like this, like a mapping project, when you see the blatant anti-Semitism, remember how the Holocaust started. Remember how all pogroms started. It didn't start by saying we have to kill all the Jews. It started slowly. When a fringe group said, oh, here's a map of all the Jewish organizations that we need to get rid of. You see, my friends, the reality is like this, that when we call them a fringe group, we're doing the worst thing, because we're saying, oh, it's not relevant. But the truth is, it is relevant, because there's no such a thing as a fringe group. It was tweeted out by BDS Boston, which supports Ayanna Pressley. Should I go on? And that's why I'm encouraged by the 37 members of Congress who asked Congress to investigate this mapping project and make it into a national issue. Because the Torah is warning us today, in this week's Torah portion, is twofold. From one side, the Torah says, when you see such anti-Semitism, when you see such hate, when you see such vitriol towards the Jewish community, remember, don't take it lightly. Don't say it's nothing. Don't say it's a fringe group. Remember what happened. Remember how all the other terrible things that happened to the Jewish people started. Like this. So we need to take it seriously. But at the same point, when you get worried and you say, what's going to be? That's when you need the Re'isa Voiser, as I said in the beginning. You need to remember you can't just see what you get. You have to remember what God did for us. Think about the modern miracles of Eretz Yisrael. Think about the 6-Day War. Think about the development of a country in 75 years that's unheard of. So yes, when we see anti-Semitism, we have to call it what it is. Not anti-Zionism, not, oh, it's just about Israel. We have to know we remember you are anti-Semitic when you do these things. But also, when you see these things, you have to remember what God has done and how He's protected us and how He will continue to protect us. Today in the morning in Shul, I was sitting with a friend of mine, and he was telling me this remarkable story. His last name is Sachs, Jeff Sachs, Dr. Jeff Sachs. And he told me that a neighbor of his, who's Israeli, their parents came to visit them from Israel, and their last name was also Zach. And he said that they were chatting. They were all from Lithuania originally. And they were chatting, and the woman, or the man, the couple from Israel said, do you know what the name Sachs means? And he says, no. And he told him something remarkable. He said in Lithuania there was terrible pogroms, and so many people became orphans. They lost both of their parents, and there was these little children running around without parents. And the community started calling them Zach or Zachs. What is Zach or Zachs? In Hebrew it's Zion, Kuf, and Shin, or Zion, Kuf. What is it an acronym for? Zeh Kadosh Shemo. This kid, holy is his name. These orphans who lost their parents to pogroms, to anti-Semitism, to hate, Zeh Kadosh Shemo, or Zeh Kadosh, this kid is holy. And from there came the name Zach and Zachs, to remember these children, how holy they were and what they sacrificed. My friends, we have to remember that Zeh Kadosh Shemo, our name is holiness. Our name is the people of Hashem. Our country, Eretz Yisrael, is holy. And we defend it with strength. And we know that people that say they're just anti-Zionist is rubbish. They're anti-Semitic. And we also remember how things start. and we don't take it for granted. And we need to speak up in one strong, united voice, unequivocally. We need to encourage Congress to do a full investigation on the mapping project, to reveal who are the people behind it who are hiding. They're scared. We don't know who the mapping project is because they're scared to tell us. We have to urge Congress to have the FBI investigate who these people are and to find out what's going on there, because Uri Isa Maisa, we will never forget what happened, and we will never forget how things start. But also, we will never forget the miracles that God has done for the Jewish people. The splitting of the sea, the 6-day war, the state of Israel, the economy, the technology, and all the other things, the Iron Dome, whatever it may be. And when we remember that, when we internalize that which we see, then we're aware and we're alert and we stand up for Judaism and for Jewish causes, but we're also not fearful. We stand strong to protect the Jewish people. Am Yisrael Chai. Have yourself an awesome day.